If you are somebody who's planning to come to the UK and study, you will know that this is the season where you will be receiving maximum number of offer letters from universities for applications that you might have made earlier in the year or even last year. This is absolutely true that most of the offer letters start rolling out anywhere between Feb and March and go all the way until May and June and even later in August. So if you have been receiving an offer letter, this video is for you because it will help you make a decision about whether you should be choosing the course and what are your job options after you've completed your course, especially in healthcare. But before we move ahead, my name is Nikita and I make videos about completing your HCPC registration, landing those healthcare jobs and clearing those interviews. And if any of this is of interest to you, do not forget to follow me on Instagram. My handle is Physiotherapy in UK, but also drop me a subscribe on my YouTube channel. So let's get into this candid conversation. So the most common question I get asked on my Instagram DMs recently is, Nikita, I've been offered a course, say for example, physiotherapy course in Cardiff. Should I take it up? Nikita, I've got an offer letter for Masters in Public Health from so-and-so university. Should I be taking it up? Now let's break this down in terms of understanding what are some of the key factors for you to consider before you make this decision. The first and the biggest factor for you to consider is not current rankings. That's right, you heard me. So most of the students will be making options to study at universities based on their current rankings. Now in the UK, we have a concept of Russell Group universities, which includes the top 4 universities in the UK. And many of you all obviously feel that if you get an admission into these Russell Group universities, you are set for life. Now, don't get me wrong, I have studied at UCL, which is University College London. It's one of the top 10 universities in the world. And I am not saying not to select these universities when you plan to study in the UK. However, what I want to help you understand is it doesn't matter what rank the university has when you choose a degree to study over there. Now, why is it so? So I know some of y'all will now call me a hypocrite and say, oh Nikita, but you did your university degree at UCL, so why are you saying this? Well, let me explain my reasons for doing my degree at UCL. So I was somebody who wanted to pursue pediatric physiotherapy, and as many of you all know, it's not very well known back in India. So obviously I wanted to further my knowledge, gain an understanding of all of the recent advances. And when I looked at UK, UCL was the only university offering a degree in Masters in Physiotherapy. Y'all can Google it, it's entirely true. Even until this date, and that was the reason I decided to pursue my further education in UCL. So obviously, if course rankings don't matter, what does? First thing for you to consider is module options. Now, whenever you are choosing a particular university or a particular degree that you want to do in a said university, I would urge you to go through all of the module options that are available for that university. I would say this comes even top to actually choosing the university, because if you look at some of the modules, they actually prepare you in order to gain more employability once you've completed the university degree. So what are examples of these? Some of the most basic examples are things like evidence-based practice. Now, when I was doing my degree at UCL, we had an important module known as research. Now, again, I know a lot of us have done research as healthcare graduates at a bachelor's level, but trust me, when I did this module at a master's level in my university, it broadened my horizon. So it taught me about how you're meant to critically examine or evaluate papers. It taught me about what is the exact process. It helped me during my dissertation. And above all, I think it opened the doors in terms of looking at research as a career option. But this is why it is so key for you to think about what modules are there when you are studying some of your courses. For example, the modules that are offered in Cardiff University might be completely different to Brunel University in London, or it might be completely different to Manchester Metropolitan University in Manchester. But what makes a course stand apart as compared to some of the other courses that are available in the UK are those module choices. And again, what module choices are preferable to you may not be the most preferable to, say, your friend or your relative or your cousin who's planning to do the similar degree in the UK. So please be aware of the module choices definitely when you've been making those applications or being offered an offer letter for any university or degree, make sure you go back, take some time and go through those module choices, see if that is something that you want to pursue as a sort of area of key interest to further your job prospects in the future, or if that is a key area where you see yourself actively being involved in your job. The second criteria for me that I would suggest you need to look at is placement options. Now, why are placement options important? As a part of my degree at UCL, I was offered placement in a said community placement, I think, for about 6 weeks. And I think it's optional for you to choose where you would like to be placed. Now, I obviously chose a setting that I could see myself working in, and that helped me to understand what is the work culture within the UK, but also how patients are handled, how data or information is handled, and what are some of the basic etiquettes that we need to use as a healthcare professional. Now, I'm not saying that having a placement is a make or break for any course or any university. However, it could be a crucial factor. Now, I know I've said that placements are important, but there's also another side to consider here. If you have gone through all of those module choices for that said university and you have felt that it has checked every single box for you in terms of making that choice and joining that university, but placement is not on the table, that is, placement is not an option, I would say don't be too stressed about it, because if you are really keen on pursuing a placement or pursuing some level of internship, then there are several options available for you. At this stage, I think it's also important for me to clear what placement means. So placement is basically, in the UK, you do not get placed as a part of the university program into a job. What it essentially stands for is doing a period of internship where you get to join a particular college or a particular hospital or a particular community service in order to improve your understanding of how that sector works. Now that we've cleared what placement looks like I was saying before, if you do not have placement on the table as a part of the university program, what I would ask you to do is reach out to the professors you have in that particular module or in that particular college or university and ask them if there are any opportunities where you can shadow some of those professors working, or if there are any clinics nearby that you can shadow. Most of the professors here have found are quite encouraging, and they would really like you to get hands-on and sort of observe the way they treat patients. So they are quite keen to get you onboarded and they will actually assist you with it. So definitely go ahead and ask them. But yes, placement or shadowing is another really good experience or thing to consider about when you are making university choices. The next thing for you to consider is overall costs. Now, when any of us plan to study abroad, each of us needs to understand what is our said and protected budget. This is the amount of money or finances that we have ring-fenced for our study abroad plans. Now, this not only includes the tuition fee, but it also includes the cost of staying, transport, and any food expenses or any miscellaneous expenses that you might have during your study abroad journey. So like I've said before, again, thinking about the most important thing in terms of expenses, the first is obviously the city where you live in. Now, as most of you all are aware, London is obviously the most expensive city in the UK, and the cost for everything over there is exponentially high as compared to some of the other cities. For example, any city in Scotland, or even higher up north, say for example, Manchester. But if you are planning to study a course that is offered both in London and maybe somewhere else, but you do not have the budget in terms of maybe either tuition fees or accommodation costs to allow you to study in London, I would say don't be disheartened. Go through those modules that are offered elsewhere. See if that's the university that you want to study in, and if it's going to be cheaper, definitely take that up. So that's one of the key things for you to consider in terms of expenses. The second factor obviously to consider when it comes to expenses is thinking about accommodation. Now, accommodation can be really varied and it depends on what kind of accommodation you would like. But if you are looking for recommendations, I would highly recommend checking out Amber Students, because they give you accommodation options from budget-friendly options such as 85 or 90 pounds for a week, all the way to much more expensive budget options, especially if you would like more privacy or if you would like a better accommodation style as compared to maybe something that your friend is looking for. So again, if you would like to find out more about where you need to find accommodation once you've selected your university, please don't forget to check out the link in the description below, because it will take you right to Amber Students page, and they offer you one-to-one assistance 24/7 right from the booking stage all the way till you've moved in. And definitely, guys, they are definitely worth it, so go and have a look. But again, when it comes to accommodation, what you also want to look at is how far away it is from the university, which brings us to the third point, which is transport costs. It's definitely worth looking at. And if you are reaching out to landlords or reaching out to people via spare rooms or any other accommodation booking sites, it's worth checking out with them, because they might be locals within the area who are using transport on a day-to-day basis. So do consider those travel expenses, especially while making your budget to study abroad. And finally, coming down to the last factor, which is employability. Now, whenever you do a course, you don't want to be in a space in the UK where after completing the course, you're not landing those jobs because that course has not really added value. And I think this is the problem that a lot of people are now facing in the UK, because some people may not realize what courses they are opting for and make a choice based on what their friends are doing or what the agent recommends. This is a really wrong approach, and what I would suggest is it doesn't matter whether you're doing a master's in business management, or whether you're doing a healthcare management course, or whether you're doing public health, or whether you're even doing advanced physiotherapy. What matters at the end of the day is where you see yourself taking your career as a part of completing the course. Again, if you are somebody who wants to be in the sector of management or public health, do not take clinical courses and vice versa, because what's important at the end of the day is where you see yourself advancing in your career, and your course needs to align with that. Now, another important factor to share over here was that when I started applying for NHS jobs, it was even before my course was completed. So technically, I was offered my job based on my bachelor's. Again, that goes to show that it doesn't matter what is the name of your university or what is the university ranking. What obviously matters is those module options, your clinical experience, and how you can tackle those interviews. Now, if any of you all are confused about what is the best route for you in terms of landing jobs in the UK, or even in terms of choosing relevant courses, please don't forget to book a one-to-one session with me where we can have in-depth discussions about what is the best choices for you, what are the choices available, and what you should consider before you come to the UK. Now, another crucial point that I want to cover at this stage, and this is again going to be a bit more in terms of clarifying some of the myths out there, is a lot of people have reached out to me saying, Nikita, are there any 30-day programs or 60-day programs that I can do which will help in terms of improving my employability in the UK in the future, or which will help me land a job really soon? It has about 8 certificates which can be used in New Zealand, UK, Canada, US, elsewhere, and the fees for these programs can be really high. Now again, this is not to influence anybody in the wrong way, and all of the opinions that I share from here on are going to be my personal views. But what I personally feel is doing all of these courses can be great if you have a lot of good clinical experience, because clinical experience cannot be trumped by anything else, including good courses. Now, why do I say this? Because when you go in for UK interviews, what they typically tend to ask you are case scenario questions. In those case scenario questions, it doesn't matter if you've done dry needling, cupping, manual handling, or whatever else. As far as you're not able to clinically apply it to a specific case, all of that knowledge is going to be superficial and theoretical. And even if you're able to demonstrate it practically, you would not know where to use it. So personally, I believe that clinical experience is going to be way, way more important. And rather than wasting money on these courses, first build up your clinical experience, because your clinical experience will dictate how you tackle those interviews and how you tackle those scenario-based questions that are thrown to you. Again, remember, good clinical experience doesn't mean that you need to get that clinical experience only in good hospitals or in multi-bed specialty hospitals. What really matters is if that clinical experience is well-rounded. So make sure you're seeing different types of patients, you're handling different conditions. And again, like I said, doesn't matter if it's in a government hospital, a clinic setting, home visits, or any other scenario. So definitely look for that good clinical experience before you opt for these courses. Another factor that I've heard many people talk about is that whenever they do one of these courses, the people who are running these courses will help them with HCPC registration. Now, again, with advice that comes related to HCPC registration, I would say there's my entire playlist, in fact, 2 playlists that can talk you through the entire process of HCPC registration. And then if you have any questions, you can again feel free to reach out to me. But if there's so much of free advice available, why should you be paying somebody to help you with your HCPC registration? And again, I'm not just talking about course providers, I'm also talking about agencies that can charge you anywhere up to £900. The cost of these agencies and courses can be so much more higher than your HCPC registration alone, which right now stands at £268. And along with the scrutiny fee, I think all of it comes in less than £600 for HCPC alone. So like I've said before, if there's so much of free advice available, why opt for paid options? Again, if you have questions after watching any of my videos, do feel free to reach out to me on Instagram. My handle is obviously Physiotherapy in UK, where we can go through some of the queries. Again, on Instagram, I have so much more information available to you. So definitely check that out. The last thing when it comes to thinking about these courses and whether you should be doing a short course is think about who is really providing these courses. While it can be true that many of these courses are being provided by people who themselves are HCPC registered or who might be registered in the US, think about what is the value that it is going to add to you. For instance, if you are somebody who is looking to apply for jobs in the UK, you might be applying for rotational jobs, which might include MSK, neuro, cardio. And then say, for example, doing a dry needling course might not be the most valuable for you because, again, you are trying to apply your skills across all of the specializations in the UK. And let me again remind you at this stage that if you start working in the NHS, obviously there are many NHS trusts which will sponsor you to go ahead and do short courses or maybe some training programs if that is in line with their sort of team goals or in line with your appraisal. So again, there are so many opportunities for you to do those courses, and these might be completely or partially funded within the NHS alone. So definitely consider this, guys, before you decide to opt for a short course which thinks that it's going to help your chances of landing a job in the UK, but it might not do so. So that's it for today's video. I hope it was able to clear out some of the queries and myths that have been going around recently. But if you have any questions, do let me know in the comment section below and I will try to get back to them. Take care.